Over the past few years, everything has changed. Where and how we work and live, the way we collaborate and measure success, and the emerging technologies we use to get it all done. Welcome to The Bridge. Join our host, Scott Kinka, in a series of discussions with top leaders in technology and learn about how they bridge their lives and their businesses into our new hybrid work and AI-driven reality. Our hope is that the insights and experiences will help you on your journey in business and in life from who we were to who we are today. And maybe it'll help you get better prepared for whatever comes next. The Bridge is a service of Bridgepoint Technologies, the nation's leading IT advisory firm. Bridgepoint helps business leaders evaluate, procure, implement, and manage technology and customer experience solutions with a focus on realizing sustainable results for your business growth. And now, here's your host, Scott Kinka.
There are something like 40,000 MSPs in the US. Our team, in fact, works with many of them. And over 75% of the Fortune 1000 use one or more of them. In many cases, being an MSP is about embracing, not avoiding, the manual work that customers don't want to do. It's a people-centric service business that can be difficult to scale. It's also why MSPs are generally regional and reliant on one-to-one relationships between employees and customers. It's a best in suite, not necessarily best in breed approach to technology support. Understanding the DNA of an MSP is what makes this episode so interesting. My guest is Roli. She's the co-founder and VP of Strategic Alliances with Sourcepass. They're a nationwide MSP born out of the pandemic, growing from 3 employees to 515 on the strength of something like 8 acquisitions. They believe that you can scale the MSP by focusing on the right market segment, by focusing on operational excellence, by developing a modern management platform to support it, and by ensuring that the people who are loved by their customers remain in the business through carefully constructed and purposeful M&A, a concept that they call intimacy at scale. This is a great story of seeing opportunity where others dare to tread. And if you like where we're treading here on The Bridge, please subscribe, comment, like, and rate us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite platform. But stay tuned and keep listening for my conversation with Roli, co-founder and VP of Strategic Alliances for Sourcepass. Welcome to this episode of The Bridge. My guest today is Roli, and we just giggled our way through the pre-show, so this ought to be fun. She is the co-founder and VP of Strategic Alliances with Sourcepass. Roli, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic, and thank you for having me today.
Of course. Where are we speaking from? Where are you?
I'm in Virginia. It's the best state.
Okay, fantastic. And that is not where the company is headquartered. You are hybrid.
We're hybrid, and we support customers who are hybrid or not, but the company's headquartered in Long Island, New York.
Got you. We're going to come back to working remotely. As people know, that's a pretty big topic on this show that we get into. But before we get there, when I was doing my research, Sourcepass, you've been there for 2 years and 8 months.
Yes.
And it doesn't take a genius to figure out when we're recording this that you chose to effectively start a business during the pandemic. And we're going to explore that in a minute. But let's just first tell us a little bit about Roli, aside from the fact that obviously, given what I just said, you're probably a masochist of some kind to have done that. But God bless you. Here we are. Tell us about you. How did you arrive here at this point?
Okay, sure. So, Scott, I grew up in India, and some of your listeners might relate to this. But when I was growing up in India, there were 2 professions of any value. You could be a doctor or an engineer. Both my parents are engineers, and I grew up around mainframes, playing frisbee with those diskettes, right? So that led to my career in technology. And very early on, I was working as a systems analyst and worked in the wireless industry. And my wonderful, kind boss, CEO, decided that I'm much better suited for the business environment. And I couldn't be more thankful to him, although I think my parents thought they have to support me again and send me a stipend. And so today, my superpower, I would say, is really understanding business needs distilling them down and helping customers solve their problems. So then I've been in companies like Newstar, GoDaddy, and Vonage is where I met the CEO of Sourcepass, Chuck Canton. And since then, we had always been thinking about doing something together in the IT space. And it just so happened that in 2020, we were just time and place is everything, right? Opportunity. And we decided to come together to form Sourcepass.
Okay, fantastic. How about you personally? Are you living in Virginia by yourself with family?
Yes, so husband, two kids, and a dog. Life is wonderful and busy. But I would say I was busy and tired when I was single. Then I got busy and tired when I was married. Then I got busy and tired when I had kids. So life has been absolutely amazing.
I appreciate that. Busy and tired. I'm going to use that next time I talk to my wife. I'm busy and tired right now. I love that. Fantastic. Tell us a little bit then about SourcePass. So you started right in the height of the pandemic, 2020. Tell us, kind of how the genesis began, and then, describe the company for our listeners, if you would.
Sure. We wanted to work for ourselves and really disrupt the MSP space. We did a lot of research in this segment. 75% of Fortune 1000 companies have MSPs that are serving them. There are about 40,000 MSPs in United States. And we learned that the MSP business, generally speaking, was very regionalized and married to a stack. And we wanted to provide a broad portfolio of technology services to the lower mid market. So companies that are 50 to maybe 3,000, 4,000, 7,000 seats, right? Users. There's a lot of choice available in the enterprise space. You know that. So on the mid side, there are lots of companies, the fastest growing sector, but there are a lot of companies that can actually see IT as an investment. So really, we started the company for three reasons. One was to provide a broad portfolio of services, right? We didn't want to be married to a stack. We didn't want to be regional. We wanted to serve our customers nationwide. We wanted to invest back in people, process, and technologies. I've had the pleasure of working with some of the best people in my journey, in my career journey, and we wanted to get those people and get that expertise in our company. So, for example, get the best practice leads, right? Use RPA, AI, invest back into our operational rigor, and then, of course, provide a digital experience. So, our third one was a lot of these companies rely on account managers, ad hoc reporting, manual intervention. So our goal was to create that digital experience platform for this segment, which is really not available today because IT services predominantly is multiple different SKUs and you're working with thousands of vendors. It's a very noisy marketplace. So we're privately owned and, we're very excited about this journey. So we have since acquired 8 companies. It's
Okay.
crazy. So I'd say about 2 years. So we've grown from 3 employees, 3 of us. Chuck started the business and Bruce and I joined him. And from 3 employees, we've gone to 550 employees and 2,000 customers. And it has been absolutely fantastic.
Wow. That's quite a story. I mean, you mentioned the market space that you fill. I think you said something like 50, call it to 3,000. And when we were talking in the pre-show, I mentioned that I often describe that market as large enough to have an IT department, but small enough to know they have a problem.
Absolutely.
Has that problem changed? I mean, was the timing of the pandemic part and parcel to the formation of the company, or did that just give you the opportunity to do it? Or do you
It
think
just
that
gave
the
us
problem's changed?
it just gave us the opportunity and we started to think about, I think that was a really thinking time for a lot of people about what they wanted to do in their life and their career. And it was time and place. We've been talking about this idea for a very long time. There was, somewhat capital in the marketplace. Timing was right. And we wanted to focus on security. So if you remember, the ransomware attacks increased during the pandemic. Really cyber insurance and providers started to pay out on these attacks a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to provide a full service experience. We all had served customers in our lives who wanted that best in suite versus best in breed, right? They don't want to deal with 20 vendors or 20 partners on any given day. And we started to think about how we would do it differently. what is in it for our customers. How do we serve our customers end to end? Because IT really transcends all facets of your business, right? It's your internal plumbing, whether you're looking, you can build blocks strategically in terms of SASE or whatever you want it to do, but your IT operations have to be super solid for you to scale.
So could you define, I mean, you mentioned 40,000 or some number like that, MSPs in the domestic United States. And I would think if you asked 40,000 of them how to define themselves, you'd probably get 10,000 definitions. Can you define MSP for me the way that you think about it? And, in that, just sort of give us the breadth of services. You don't need to give us a whole laundry list, but I mean, categorically, how do you describe your service lines?
Sure. So I define it as IT services company. So providing managed services, everything from productivity tools, right? Having a NOC, SOC, managing your environments, your, say, Microsoft environment, disaster recovery, taking on level 1 to level 4, depending on whether we become your sole IT provider or we are in a co-managed environment, right? Even in a co-managed environment, companies who have IT teams, there are mundane facets of IT that people don't really want to do. There is a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes, managing your security, patching, you name it, user onboarding, offboarding, which creates that angst. And so I didn't mention this, but Scott, one of our mission statement is to provide an IT experience our customers love. And because we're a little bit nimble, we're able to audit that along the way as we acquire more companies and hire more people. So I'd say from a stack perspective, going back to that, productivity, security is very important, right? So from anywhere from XDR, SIM, SOC, standard SASE, zero trust, also going into infrastructure. A lot of the MSPs really outsource infrastructure or whatnot. And we feel like we want to provide that end-to-end value for our customers because everything touches all these data points, right? And even compliance. So we provide compliance services, advisory services, and digital transformation. So if you are implementing BI, if you're trying to create a proprietary application that really takes data inputs from multiple different spaces, we can also do that. We have a delivery platform internally.
Got it. So let me make that I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and just basically say end user infrastructure and application implementation, monitoring, and management. Fair?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So you are both in some cases competitive to solution providers who do one thing and also supportive of them in that you may be managing, implementing, or being the administrator of their solution.
Absolutely. Because even if you buy a particular service, you need somebody to implement it sometimes. You can buy a license, right? And you need somebody to provide holistic services around it. And we are in the times of AI and automation. So it doesn't solve the problem of security if you're just taking data input from one platform, but really not pairing it with other platforms, right? So as your security provider, we can not only we onboard our customers and take all the inventory of everything IT that's in their environment, but we also become the advisors as they start to make more decisions based on their IT strategy and business needs.
Totally get it. And it's interesting. I mean, we talk a lot at Bridgepoint, right, as advisors that there's always a gap between the customer's ability to buy something and where the service provider wants to start, right? Like it's not, you can say it in software is a really good example. Salesforce is not getting paid to make you a good user of Salesforce. You know what I mean? They're getting paid to run software and make sure that it's available to you when you need it. But, oftentimes we, as consumers kind of lump our usability of your product in with the success of the product, and is it a fair way for me to describe maybe some of the holes that you guys fill in terms of the customer's ability to consume multiple platforms?
Please.
You know what I'm saying? Is that a good way to describe it? Like,
yes.
You're filling in that space between sort of where the customer ends and where the service provider begins in a lot of places?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because to make things work, adoption and execution go hand in hand, right? So absolutely. We don't care if the customer is married to one platform or another. We want to make sure that they have business continuity in the end. We want to
Got it.
make sure that they're driving their business outcome, and IT is just a conduit to do that.
So, one of the complexities, obviously, in running any IT management business, but in particular an MSP, where maybe you're not, in every case, the provider of the underlying platform, um, is there's a lot of windows to look at, right? I mean, the monitoring of these platforms, there's a lot of places to go do that. We talked quite a bit in our pre-work about how you guys are trying to solve that, sort of the manager of managers or the window of windows into the multiple things that you're managing for customers. And I'm obviously oversimplifying. Tell me a little bit more about how you guys are trying to attack that as an MSP. It really it seems like anytime I'm talking to an MSP of any kind, that always ends up being the conversation. Sort of, what's the heads up display you're looking at?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question because generally you go to your account manager. All businesses have tens of hundreds of portals they visit or applications that they have to launch. And so as soon as we started Sourcepass, we started developing our digital experience platform. It's called Quest. And Quest is going to start off as a unifying platform, but eventually it'll become an open ecosystem for our clients. So initially, even as your customer of an MSP, you have the ticketing platform, you have the invoicing platform, you have your licenses, right? You have asset reporting, you have LMS, because trust me, a lot of businesses hire people who don't know how to use Outlook per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this platform will be their digital experience platform that will have all their invoicing, asset reporting, self-service, LMS all in one place. So they'll have an IT inventory to be able to actually use IT as an investment versus a necessary evil in their business. And what if you have to spit out some analytics and reports on Sunday morning? You can't reach your account manager. This would be absolutely invaluable to them. Also, with this platform, it's just not a GUI based platform. We're putting a lot of automation behind it. So, for example, we have automated user onboarding. Scott, maybe you don't know this, but to onboard a user, you have to go to multiple different applications. You have to
Mm-hmm.
get the licenses. You have to set the right access, right? You have to get the right type of laptop, right type of roles and privileges. All of that, which would take 4 or 5 hours for our technicians to do, can be done in minutes. Because one of the biggest pain points for business owners is that first day experience for your employees, right? So how many times I have nightmare stories of me being onboarded from not being able to log in, my laptop having to ship back. And all of that is huge in terms of customer experience. And offboarding. What if you have a rogue employee that has to be knocked out of the system in minutes? We can do that in minutes. So that's one of them.
So does the platform, a lot of things that you said that it does there, but at its basis, is it effectively, kind of like a single sign-on identity management platform for the users as well, or can the customer bring their own there? Tell me about kind of
They
the
can do both.
ID and
I'm so glad you asked. So eventually it'll be an open marketplace. So for example, you're managing all the Sourcepass inventory through Quest, but eventually you'll be able to bring in your other vendors into it. You'll have one
okay,
common ecosystem for all your vendor management. Now you may use a security service from us, but you may have security components of your environment somewhere else. And we believe that you have to look at security holistically. So
mm-hmm.
this platform will ingest all that data into Quest, serve it up, and use AI in the back end to do threat intelligence and things like that to be able to provide, actionable insights
Is this being developed internally?
internally. Yes.
Internally, and tell me, is it available yet to your
It
customers?
is
Or
being rolled out in July. Very excited. It's in beta. We've been interviewing a lot of our customers and, the whole pragmatic product journey.
yeah,
Yes.
wow. Oh, so you're right up against it.
Yes. And it's a big differentiator in the marketplace because MSP is sort of a scrappy business, right? And we have the brightest people working on it and it's very disruptive in the marketplace. I'm so excited.
Is there intent to sell the platform as a platform, or is that only when it's embedded with your services as an MSP?
We've talked about that, is all I'll say right now.
Got it. So not yet. You're going to keep your secret sauce as your secret sauce, but there's potentially an opportunity to work with other MSP partners maybe in the future, as you consider what that is.
It's our secret with our thousands of customers. Yes.
Yeah, I got it. I understand. Yeah, listen, it's a business. I find your story super interesting, right? Because it is the of all the ways to think about it, it's one of, if not the hardest way to be a service provider, right? Is
Yes.
down at sort of the multi-platform MSP level. I don't mean to imply that it's the ugly work, but it's the heavy lifting, right? At
It
the end of the
is.
day. And it's oftentimes challenging to find partners who are willing to do it sort of at the level that Sourcepass is willing to do it. You know what I mean? On a per head, on a per server, on a per location basis, you know, on platforms that, maybe you didn't help the customer acquire, which is really a super interesting way of approaching the market. Those acquisitions, were they made for skill set? Were they made for regionality? A little bit of all of it. Like, what's the current coverage of the company from both the geographic perspective and I would say sort of a time zone and hours coverage perspective?
So our first acquisition, it took us a year and a half to make, and we were really diligently looking for our first acquisition to be operationally completely solid. Our strategy was to find a smaller MSP that was, of course, profitable, but also operationally very well set up. So we could bolt on all the other acquisitions on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And these other acquisitions actually have lent to our story of broad portfolio, right? Every time we make an acquisition, we acquire technology, we acquire a customer base that uses that technology. So primarily we started to create our footprint in the Northeast. We made one acquisition in the Mid-Atlantic. And our latest acquisition is in Denver, which is the company that we recently closed. So market share, our CEO says we want to be in all NFL markets. So that's the strategy. But also we also made an acquisition in the dynamic space. So as I mentioned, broad portfolio, create that value for our customers. So IT services, but also value added services where it makes sense. So we acquired a company in New York City that provides dynamic services.
Got it. Got it. And is that, you're already, as you mentioned, managing productivity suites, particularly around the Microsoft portfolio?
Yes, we
Got it.
are.
Are you a CSP for your customers on the
We,
Microsoft suite?
we are.
Got it. Okay. Super interesting. That's one where, we do a lot with Microsoft as well. And it's sort of, they're an essential brand in any business at this point, but nobody wants to call them, right? At the end of the day. And in fact, they don't want you to call them, is
They
the
don't
reality of the
want you to
situation.
call them. That's
Um,
right.
so you can operate as a CSP for businesses that you are providing the MSP services for. You can take over the licensing, the invoicing, and
Abs-
then the direct
all
tier
of
one
that. All of
customer
that.
support on Microsoft
All of
productivity.
that. Yes.
Okay,
So we have customers on Google Cloud too, but primarily, of course, Microsoft is pretty dominant in that market
sure.
segment.
Let's talk about you guys as a company a little bit. I mean, we get into, this was an organization that was constructed out of 8 acquisitions, founded in the height of the pandemic. Um, how is it that you guys work today? Are you all remote? Are you hybrid? What's the long-term plan? Share a little bit.
So we are hybrid right now. We believe in hiring the best people to make our company better. We are also incorporated overseas. So most of our service is done by W-2 employees, right? And most of our customers are served by W-2 employees around the sun. We believe in hybrid workplace, but I will say, because I've noticed that a lot of these companies, these people have long-term relationships with their employees, Scott. In
Yeah,
these MSPs that we acquired, these companies, these people have stayed together, seen marriages, birth of their kids together, and
yeah,
they love to meet each other. So we have offices where we do, cultural events, potlucks and things like that, and they love to come into an office. And we're also looking to expand into a big office in Long Island, because now we have 3 disparate offices right now. but we're hybrid first, and we serve customers who are hybrid or not. So for us, we use technology to its best.
Got it. Got it. Understood. Do you have any words of wisdom for companies? Let's just forget the fact that you're in technology for a minute.
Okay.
You are users of technology, and you've acquired 8 businesses since the pandemic. So you could treat this one of two ways, and maybe I'll ask you both questions, but it depends on how you want to answer. Words of wisdom and or the converse to that, maybe mistakes that you're willing to share that you've made that maybe you might have handled a little bit differently as it relates to, the topic of hybrid work and, people and culture and all the things that everybody's struggling with right now.
I'd say communication is key.
Mm-hmm.
We were all so busy making these acquisitions work and these companies coming together. I think we learned that periodic communication, people want to know and be in the know and have proactive events that they can come and get together was one of the things we talked about. From the employee satisfaction and improvement, we rolled out performance improvement, like not performance improvement, but sort of plans, to reward employees. A lot of that, town halls and things like that, for them
Mm-hmm.
to mingle with each other. So that came after a couple acquisitions, right? Those were one of those areas where we started out, we did okay, but now we're doing much better. From what not to do, I think, to be completely candid, when we're making these acquisitions and the employees come to know that they're being acquired, we've learned to do very proactive communication, because not knowing creates that angst,
Mm-hmm.
and no news is sometimes not good news, it's bad news,
Yeah.
right? And so that is that area where they know that their company was acquired and they feel like they are in somewhat uncertain time zone. And so we do very consciously, we make effort to be there in that office, communicate, meet with the employees, our HR, our marketing, our communications, all that team is really focused on making sure that team feels really welcomed.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, in our space, in the advisory space, there's quite a bit of consolidation that's going on over the last year as well. We say all the time in our company, it's easy to buy businesses. It's tough to integrate them. And in a lot of ways, sometimes business, the way to handle the integration is to not integrate. You know what I mean? Change the name on the door, give everybody a similar email address, but let them run. Um, we often, though, do have the debate, and I think everyone's a little bit different, but we do have the debate about, being prescriptive about where there are
Mhm.
opportunities for organizational synergy. And I don't mean synergy in terms of like losing people. I don't mean that. I mean more
Right.
like, you know, you have a company over here and it has a group that does one thing, and you just bought another company over here and they have a group that does the same thing. Is it, do, do you prescribe eight's a lot to do in a, 2.5 year window, let's be honest. And I'm sure the first two went the last two have gone a whole hell of a lot better than the first two, I'm sure. Um, but as you're doing them, you provide, in some cases, like you bought the Dynamics company. Yeah, they do something different. But if you
Right.
were to buy, you want to be in all the major NFL cities. So let's say you go down into Texas and you buy an MSP that you like in Dallas, and they do a very similar thing to what you do in Denver and in Long Island. Do you sort of go in very early to try to create peer groups, or do and make that develop that connective tissue immediately between people that do the same thing? Or do you like to sort of let them mull a little bit and sort of get used to being part of the broader company and let those opportunities present themselves over time? Or is it too hard a question to answer because everyone's so unique?
There is uniqueness to each of these entities that we have sort of rolled into the SourcePass umbrella.
Yeah.
And we have a dedicated M&A team, a due diligence team, that are, that they have a very good understanding of how SourcePass works. So there is a lot of that work that goes into, there's a lot of due diligence, post diligence work, and advice and guidance that is obtained from that, in terms of how those synergies, not cost savings, but how people have to be rolled in, where they fit best. But
Hmm.
generally speaking, Scott, MSP businesses run by one or two smart engineers are lean businesses. They're already at capacity, must say. So
Exactly.
yeah, they're not businesses that have fluff or
Oh no,
extra.
yeah.
Yes. So it's been great because generally speaking, we have the owners and we have, I'd say, 90 to 95% of employees and customers still with us.
And that's so important in an MSP. I mean, the reality of it is, yeah, I mean, you have products, but you are a people company at the core, right?
Yes.
The
Very true.
customer who enjoys your services. I think you said love and IT in the same sentence earlier, which oftentimes are never in the same sentence. The people, the people who people love, are the individuals that they call and they know their business and they're going to get. So
Yeah.
you that's amazing. You've managed to retain, 95% of the people in the businesses that you've acquired. That's a heavy lift in an MSP business. I think that's really, that's a feather in the cap of what sounds like, not only experienced business people, but experienced buyers, which I think is really important. It's impressive to hear you say you have an M&A team, I,
Right.
I always get, kind of chuckle because I feel like in a lot of ways, sometimes M&A just happens to a company as opposed to it being a prescriptive choice, a thing you
Deliberate.
do, approaching it with a process, ending it with a kind of roadmap for how you're going to do the integration, walking in with a strategy, sharing with the employees what the strategy is. You mean X to us in Y market. We're going to do Z things with you. You're important to us for these reasons. I mean, it takes experience to be able to do that. And for you all to have maintained 95% of the employees as you've rolled up 8 companies in 2 years is really impressive. So congratulations to you on building an awesome business.
Thank you. And we have this model called intimacy at scale because even our customers love to do business with us because they know us, the team that we acquired, the team that has been serving them. So we have sort of a group of people manage a group of customers. We call it intimacy at scale. And Scott, today our customers have been with us for 10 plus years, right?
Mm-hmm.
If and I joke about this, but it's not really a joke. They consult our advisors along the way. And I say that if they're buying a refrigerator, they might even ask our advisor, which one do you have at home? And so that is hard to do. It's resource intensive. But as I mentioned, we're privately owned. We're not losing control and we're not writing a check every month. So, we're the basic tenet that was to invest back into the business to provide that
Sure.
benefit to the customer.
Well, and look, you went into a business with the design of being an MSP. It's not like, MSP businesses are super resource intensive when you do something else and you try to be an MSP. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Well, you're going in with the expectations of your margin being based around the humans that are
Right.
delivering intimacy at scale. I love that intimacy at scale. I saw when you said that, I looked over at our producer who was jotting that down. I know he's going to pull that one. He's going to pull that one out for a quotable. Let's have some fun and we'll wrap it up because we're tapping up against the top of the hour. Um, couple kind of fun questions. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So this one is sort of the bridge question, pun intended
Okay.
on the name, but between the tech and the fun, and you can answer it whatever way you want. Could be tech, could be fun, but make a shameless prediction about the next 18 to 24 months for us, whether it's in tech or entertainment, politics, sports, you name it. Up to you.
I'll make one tech and make one self-serving. So
Sure.
on the tech side, I think security, I've done a lot of research in security. So security became a concern when insurance companies started paying out on
Mm-hmm.
events, and cyber liability insurance is through the roof. It's a big concern. Security is a big concern for all our customers. If you ever interview customers, business owners, security is top of mind. And today, even though 70% of this segment thinks security is important, but 30% only really invests in it. It's kind of a nice to have. They don't really want to put the money there. And I think security will be like buying Microsoft licenses. You just don't have an option. And as we move forward, security will not just be your MSP, it will be your holistic security, right? And Quest eventually will be able to do that, but many other platforms will be able to digest data from multiple different resources to provide that predictive analysis, proactive monitoring, and look at devices, company, places, everything to be able to provide a holistic 360 view on your security.
Got it. I mean, listen, I agree. particularly in what you were saying about cyber insurance. I mean, it used to be that you just said, hey, this is complicated. I can't solve for every situation, so I'll just paper it up with insurance, right? I mean, and the reality of it is that you're not going to be able to acquire insurance. Like I said, the premiums are through the roof without, demonstrating that you're not expected to be perfect, because 0 day is 0 day, right?
Right.
But you are expected, in compliancy and with your cyber insurance carrier, that you're doing appropriate things, right? And industry expected things, that you have them documented, that you can demonstrate that you do them, and that you can show and provide log and all the things that are necessary
And do them
when
now.
the inevitable happens, right?
Right. And do them now. There was a time where you could just say, I'm looking at it. Right.
Yeah.
And insurance questionnaires, like crowdsourcing. Every time the insurance company pays on an event, it's in the questionnaire. So
I like that. Every time an insurance company pays on an event, it becomes a question that gets added to the questionnaire. I love that. I was going to ask you this one early on, and I neglected to do it. But is there any sort of business reading you're doing right now that you'd share with everybody? Anything?
I oscillate between business reading and personal, but I'm reading this book called Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. And Scott, I see myself doing multitasking, which is not multitasking in his words. He says we switch task, and it's very interesting. He says, all your parts of body actually create, brain, the poop, your eyes and nose, but your brain does too. And we just don't get enough sleep during the day for our brain to categorize our day's events and to be able to just process everything. So it's a very interesting book about attention span and the impact of technology on humans and how we're not able to even read long books anymore.
Yeah. It's really wild. I absolutely have to. One of the niftiest little tools that I have ever come up with from a productivity perspective is just turning on the auto, time block functionality. I forget what the actual functionality is called in Office 365. I just tell it, like, find me 5 hours a week, mark them as focused, because if I didn't do that, I would literally just be reacting to email. I feel like, phone call to phone call, email to email. It's really, all right. I'm going to check that book out. Last one. Here's the most fun one. Well, you don't have to answer it fun, but we've gotten some fun answers. Let's assume that the next pandemic dystopian event, robots take over the world, whatever it is occurs, and you have one remaining functioning app working on your mobile device. What would it be?
Okay, so if we're in a pandemic like 2020, I'd like it to be a phone. But if you're in an apocalypse, is there an app that teaches you how to live by the apocalypse? It'd be my book reader. It'd be my Audible or Until the Battery Dies.
It's funny, and I don't provide any. I ask this question to every one of our guests, and I don't provide any guidance on it. So the answers have been fun. One person's like, I need my ESPN app. And then we got into well, if no one's playing sports, how important is that? We had a really interesting one that just said, listen, if nothing else is going on and it was truly dystopian, just let my flashlight still work.
That's awesome.
Which I thought was a good answer also. I can't remember who that was, but I like it. The book reader ones come up. You're like, if I've got a lot of time by myself, I got to have something to do to stimulate my mind. Right. So book reader, I love it. Well, this has been awesome. Roli, if anyone who's listening wants to find out a little bit more about Sourcepass, what would you recommend that they do?
Please visit sourcepass.com, our LinkedIn page, Sourcepass, and then you can reach me anytime at ourpoints@sourcepass.com. So ourpoints@sourcepass.com, or reach out to Scott.
Yeah, fantastic. And we would love, obviously, we have a burgeoning partnership between Sourcepass and Bridgepoint, and our strategists all over the country are happy to engage, you with the Sourcepass team. So to our listeners, hope that happens. And for all of you, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Roli, thank you for your time. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Scott. It's so much fun to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly. We'd also like to say one more time that we're appreciative of Bridgepoint Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation, or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepoint, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out bridgepointtechnologies.com. Don't forget the E on Bridgepoint, or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at bpt3.net. Also take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It helps give us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I'm Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there in business and in life. Do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.